from our 7 Tasmania studios. Your nightly news with Joe Palmer begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Ambulance Tasmania is reviewing an incident during what's been described by a manager as a horrific night. Unions say paramedics are being sent out alone, and in one case, a family member had to step in to drive an ambulance to hospital.
A leaked email from inside Ambulance Tasmania lays bare to the pressures on our health system. The situation last Thursday night so serious it prompted this response from a manager, saying he was disappointed about distressing events, describing it as an horrific night that had an adverse impact on team members.
We are putting people at risk and no doubt it is negatively affecting the health outcomes of patients.
The concern from the health union is that paramedics are being sent to jobs on their own, describing one incident on Thursday where a patient's family member stepped in to drive an ambulance while the paramedic tended to the patient in the back.
We've heard multiple cases where the Tasmanian community were put at risk because of understaffing. This is not acceptable. The community deserve a lot better.
That family member just happened to be an off-duty police officer.
We'd never discount our oath of office that any of us sign up to, protecting life and property, but sometimes our people are being exposed to medical issues that they're not trained for, they don't have the skill set for.
The new Health Minister says the incident was an exceptional circumstance during a period of high demand. Louise, HEDGER, 7 Tasmania News.
One Tasmanian school has been closed while cleaners have picketed another following work bans. The state government has labelled the move as disgraceful and is threatening to stand down staff without pay.
Another industrial relations mess for the state government to mop up.
Pay rise! Now!
At Rose Bay High School, filthy hallways and classrooms go uncleaned. Outside, facility attendants call for a pay rise to meet the growing cost of living.
Petrol's gone up, food's gone up, kids for schooling, all their school stuff that they need.
The Department of Education today resorted to contractors to tidy up. Unions say that's a breach of a legal agreement.
Contract cleaners got to go, hey, hey!
And they aren't backing down on calls for a 2.5% pay bump.
Cleaners need a pay rise because they do an amazing job. They work incredibly hard, they deserve it.
The strike has drawn a furious response from critics.
Extremely disappointing, the way that schools and parents feel intimidated going in and out of the school today with the industrial action going on there.
Meanwhile, Ulverston Secondary College was also forced to shut its doors to students after cleaners here downed tools. Contractors will also be used to reopen a Northwest school tomorrow. Nearby, opinion was divided on the issue.
It's a low-paid job, and if you have to fight and close the school down to get your point across, well, you have to do it.
They clean up after our children, so, you know, I'm sure that they're not asking for anything that they aren't entitled to or that they haven't earned.
Ridiculous that these people go on strike over something so petty.
But with unions and the government no longer talking, it's now up to the Tasmanian Industrial Relations Commission to clean up the mess. MCCOMISH, 7 Tasmania News.
Following the announcement of a major shake-up of government, the reshuffled Tasmanian Cabinet has been officially sworn in. It comes as the possibility of a minority government lingers, with Rogue Speaker Sue Hickey still yet to decide if she'll remain a Liberal member.
Tasmania's new cabinet in their stride together at Hobart's Government House this morning, officiating the new ministerial appointments.
I accepted the resignations and the Premier's recommendation and appointed a new minister and other ministers to new offices. It now remains for the ministers to be sworn into office.
The former Health Minister Michael Ferguson standing side by side with the new person taking on the heavy portfolio.
I, Sarah Jane Courtney, do swear that I will faithfully execute the offices of Minister for Health and Minister for Women, so help me God.
As Michael Ferguson says goodbye to the portfolio he's held for the past 5 years, leaving behind what Labor describes as a health crisis.
This government, this minority Liberal government, can surround themselves in the pomp and ceremony of Government House and have cups of tea and cucumber sandwiches. It is absolutely disgraceful that they're not dealing with the health crisis.
The ministers then locked in cabinet all day, with the possibility of a minority government still hanging over their heads. Parliament's rogue speaker meeting this week with the Premier as she considers ditching her own party, who she says has mistreated her, to sit as an independent. Sue Hickey is expected to make her decision by Friday. ROBBIE COMMANE, 7 Tasmania News.
There's more turbulence for Bass Strait flights, with Sharp Airlines hitting back at council fee increases on Flinders Island. The operator says taxes for passengers will double over 4 years, amounting to $60 per return ticket. It's threatening to cut 300 of its 1,500 flights a year if the council doesn't back down. The mayor couldn't be contacted for comment. A 27-year-old man has been charged with multiple offences following an alleged evade that ended in an arrest in the middle of the Brooker Highway yesterday. Police say an officer was injured during the incident when he was struck by an unregistered motorcycle. A 27-year-old Chigwell man has been charged with evade police under aggravating circumstances, assaulting a police officer, drug trafficking and numerous road offences. Heritage values are proving to be major hurdles for developments in Hobart and Launceston, with proposed accommodation sites in both cities facing community backlash. A 45-metre high proposal for Hobart City last night faced its first rejection, a pushback described by one proponent as shocking.
According to this developer, the middle of Hobart City is the perfect location for 52 apartments.
A lot of thought, consideration and effort has been put into providing an appropriate development.
Quinten is the front man for the HEDGER Group, the Melbourne company behind the 13-storey, 45-metre proposal on the corner of Harrington and Davey Streets.
I think given the housing crisis in Hobart, everyone felt that this project would offer a much greater benefit to the community than whatever the perceived impact would be.
But it's already facing hurdles. A Hobart City Council Planning Committee last night voted 3-2 to refuse it, based on recommendations from council officers. Its size and scope and issues with heritage the key reasons. A full decision is expected to be made by the full Hobart City Council next week.
It's about having good development, appropriate development for our city.
In Launceston, a 39-metre high development is also facing backlash. The council has approved the Gorge Hotel project, but today an appeal has been launched by opponents.
It's a real David and Goliath battle.
The $50 million development is tipped to create jobs, but this restaurant owner says it would negatively impact her business and way of life.
I believe this is not just about the building but also the moral and principles as well.
It's obviously apparent throughout the state that there's going to be a proliferation of high-rise buildings throughout Tasmania if we're not careful.
A tug of war between heritage and high-rises. Louise, HEDGER, 7 Tasmania News.
NBL boss Larry Kesselman has jetted into the state as he looks to expand his multi-million-dollar property and sporting empire to Hobart. He says today's talks with the state government and Glenorchy Council were productive, but a formal deal is yet to be struck.
Kesselman arrived yesterday, meeting with Glenorchy Mayor KRISTIE Johnston this morning. By early afternoon, it was the Premier's turn to hear about grand plans for a multi-million-dollar South Bank-style precinct, with a revamped Derwent Entertainment Centre and an NBL team, the jewel in the crown.
We'll put an MOU together and a plan of action, how to actually make it happen. So very positive and a lot of work to do, but I love it. Tasmania's getting behind it, so we're thrilled.
There's still no dollar figure on what it will cost to repair the deck, but he remains hopeful the government will chip in.
We're going to have to assess it, appoint architects, but all I can say is that the support is there. The government wants to try to make it happen.
In a statement, Premier Will Hodgman says the meeting was productive and he looks forward to continuing discussions around a non-binding Memorandum of Understanding. The Glenorchy Mayor is also upbeat.
Certainly Mr Kesselman presents a unique opportunity and proposal, the scale of what he is proposing, also his ability to deliver, and particularly the NBL factor is a key interest for us as well.
And the NBL may be in Tasmania as early as next season, with the property mogul also meeting corporate heavyweights to gauge support.
I think it's a small possibility, but I think it'll be tight. Just thinking through now exactly what needs to happen, but we're not going to give up just yet. We'll keep pushing ahead.
Andrew McCarthy, 7 Tasmania News.
All right, let's take a look at the day's business and finance news now. And the Australian stock market closed flat following that decision by the Reserve Bank to cut the official cash rate to a record low of 1%. The ASX 200 index rose 5.1 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 69.78 US cents and 61.8 euro cents.
Well, Lauderdale's Jeremiah Perkins has accepted a 2-match ban after he was reported for rough conduct against North Launceston's Lachlan Cocker. The match review panel determined the conduct to be intentional with medium impact, with the potential to cause serious injury. Meanwhile, Glenorchy is breathing a sigh of relief after Ben Camerick escaped with a reprimand for making contact with an umpire. Northwest Graduates will be looking to continue its winning ways when it meets cellar dwellers the Diamondbacks in round 14 of the Men's Premier Hockey League on Saturday afternoon. Grads now sit on top of the table after defeating Derwent 6-4.
We've had some competitive battles with the Diamondbacks this year, and they've always pushed us right until the last whistle, so it's always a good test, and we work on a few things in the game anyway, so yeah, it's a good workout.
In the women's, OHA is eyeing off the minor premiership in its centennial year with 7 rounds remaining.
To be a part of a club that's got such a great family atmosphere, and to top it off with a couple of wins with our Premier League teams on the weekend was fantastic.
OHA's next clash is against Canterbury. Well, they might not have the speed of the V8s, but there was plenty of fast action at Symonds Plains today.
On our marks.
With the secondary all-schools cross-country championships, more than 1,200 secondary students faced the extra challenge of muddy conditions this year.
It was a bit tough, but I suppose cross-country is meant to be tough. You know, you can't have an easy cross-country run, so I mean, it's good just to have a bit of variety with the rain and a bit of mud.
It follows last week's primary school event with 2,500 students from 150 primary schools.
Good evening. A low pressure trough was the main player on our weather today. Hobart 12 degrees, Launceston and Devonport 14, Burnie with 15, the high around the state with friendly beaches. Smithton, St Helens and the Islands 14 degrees, Lowhead and Strawn 13, Grove 12 and Ooze 11. Now as the cloud moved through today, Mount Reid scored 21 millimetres of rain after Darwin Dam had 87 millimetres in the previous 24 hours. Now more cloud associated with that cold front is east of Tasmania. Cold unstable air is now just to our west. Some cloud with a surface trough over Western Australia, and afternoon convection produced the cloud along the Queensland coast. Tomorrow the high is back in charge, extending ridges over most of the nation, a couple of troughs over northern Australia. The winds west to southwesterly, still quite strong, 15 to 25 knots, reaching 30 knots over the southeast early in the morning, swells to 5 metres. A strong wind warning for waters between Wineglass Bay and southeast Cape. Now that's just for the early hours, as a moderation is expected mid to late morning. And for tomorrow, a top of 13 for Hobart and partly cloudy, 13 also for Geeveston, Bothwell, 1 overnight to a top of 11. 14 the high for Launceston after a morning frost and a few fog patches, sunny for Devonport and 13, a cold start for Cressy with 12 the high later. Burnie a top of 13 degrees, a sunny day, cloudy for Strawn and 13, Curry partly cloudy, 14 the maximum, and for St Helens 14 the top, along with Swansea, partly cloudy for Orford and 13. On to Thursday, mainly fine and partly cloudy, maybe just a chance of a late shower over the east, patchy fog and frost as well. Showers over the north on Friday, but fine after widespread morning frost. And on Saturday, showers over the north, easing in the afternoon, fine for the remainder of Tasmania. A sunny 21 in Perth tomorrow, cloudy for Adelaide and Melbourne, a shower forecast for Sydney. Also a shower developing later for Brisbane and 23 degrees, but sunny further north. And it's 9 degrees right now in Hobart, bit of cloud around, 9 in Launceston and 9 in Devonport. And tonight's energy saving tip from the staff at Aurora Energy: to save a lot of power, switch off your general appliances at the power point when not in use. So in your case, Joe, turn off your hair crimper, your hair straightener, turn off your hair dryer, your foot bath, your electric toothbrush, your hydrating machine, and that's not even half the stuff you've got plugged in.
If only there was a switch to turn you off, Merv. That's what I really need from Aurora. Thank you very much. All right, we'll see you a little later with updates. Bye for now.
Hi, Max. If it's a last will come back forward. On your marks,